What's up everybody, Jake Blickenstaff here, coming at you in another video. So today we are outside of Prime Lending. Gonna go in and talk to a good buddy of mine, Evan Nissley. He's a mortgage originator here in the Athens area, just outside of Athens. And let's find out what he has to say about what's going on in this crazy real estate market and where he thinks rates might be going. So let's go check it out. What's up everybody, Jake Blickenstaff here, coming at you in another video. So here with my buddy Evan. Good to see you, brother.
You too, man.
So I've known Evan for a little over 20 years actually.
Wow.
We went to high school together, and it's amazing we turned out in the same industry. But phenomenal mortgage officer, and I don't want to say too much about your business. I'll let you take the cake on that. But why don't you go ahead and let my audience know a little bit about you, who you are, what you do, and why you do it.
Yep. So as Jake said, my name is Evan Nissley. I'm a branch manager with Prime Lending. I've been with Prime Lending for almost 7 years now. I've been in the mortgage business since 2008. Got in right after the crazy times.
Great time right there.
Oof, man.
I got to ask, what made you decide to get into the mortgage business when we're in the middle of a housing crisis?
Stupidity. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, it seems like it has worked out pretty well, because everything that I've seen, you guys have a successful branch going here for sure.
We do, and I'd love to say that I went through college and had grand aspirations to be a loan officer when I got out of college. But the truth of it is, I got out of college and I had a business degree, and I'm like, well, what do I do now? And just happened to take a position with Wells Fargo. And no one knew who Wells Fargo was at that time. They were on the West Coast only. It was before the Wachovia stuff. But yeah, and enjoyed it pretty quickly, because I found that I was able to retain a lot of information, and that's really important as a loan officer during that time and now, is being able to know your guidelines and being able to work through the challenges early, right? Mm-hmm. There's tons of folks out there that can operate a computer and run a pre-approval and send a letter, but for someone that can actually dive in deep and know exactly what a customer is able to do on the front end is super important. So prided myself on that and kind of just ran it from there.
So really being able to identify those problems, because at the end of the day, it's trend analysis and kind of patterns. So you're seeing from different clients' perspectives with what's going on in their financial picture. You have a good insight on the front end, being like, hey, we might run into problems here, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, in our world, in the lending world, it's it's pretty black and white with guidelines. It just so happens that guideline book may be 150 pages long, and there's a lot of things that logically speaking would make sense from a risk standpoint in getting a mortgage. Mm-hmm. Client has X amount of dollars in the bank, so they should be able to get a loan, but they've got to fit within the boxes of the guidelines. So being able to know what those are quickly, efficiently, and be able to communicate that to a client on the front end, and be able to talk through options with them and explain why those options are the way they are is very important, at least for me, because it shows that I know my trade, and I'm providing the best service that I can outside of all the creativeness that we're seeing these days.
So with that in mind, I always like to throw out some kind of valuable nugget for kind of my audience, especially with whoever it is that I'm speaking with.
Yeah.
I get a lot of questions about what makes this market that we're in now different than, say, the 2008 market.
That's a great question. So speaking into the facts of the numbers, in 2008, well, we'll go back to 2007, because 2008 was kind of after, but before the crash, there were 3.8 million homes for sale. Mm. Today, this is across the country, today there's 950,000, and there's 14 million more households today. So that's the difference. You've got a simple supply and demand issue.
Okay. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't they wind up putting in stricter regulations as opposed to, like, there's a term that we always like to joke about, like they were basically giving out loans to anybody that could fog a mirror.
Yeah.
Back in 06, 07, 08.
Yeah, the ninja loans.
Yeah.
No income, no job, no asset. You get a mortgage. I heard crazy stories. This was, because I got in 08 and I really didn't know what I was doing until probably 2009 and a half, 10. But, the stories where something would blow up on a loan, but hey, this loan's going to get packaged and sold to an investor next Friday, so we'll sign off on it and it'll all be good.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're 100% right. So guidelines today are much stricter, and that does speak into a big difference as well. Is we're writing much different loans these days than we were back in 07 and 08, and that's not changing, right?
Yeah.
So that's comforting,
Yeah, I agree. That means everybody that's actually getting a loan for the most part is actually qualified.
Right. Yeah. There's some definitions behind it. The agencies look at that as what's called a qualified mortgage. Now they've actually put in specific regulatory guidelines around what's considered a qualified mortgage. Doesn't mean that you can't get a mortgage that's outside of that spectrum, but there's even more strict requirements around that. So you don't see a lot of these like subprime, loans being written these days.
And I've even heard from the similar questions from clients of mine, like, hey, how come we haven't seen as much foreclosures? Well, the same kind of situation where even if people do wind up losing a job or they have some kind of critical life event that doesn't allow them to afford their home anymore, one of the benefits is, just at least from my perspective, from the real estate agent side, is that they've got so much equity in their house that we still have a means to be able to save them from their situation to where they don't have that foreclosure on their record.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no reason for anyone. I say there's no reason. I mean, there's probably some situations that come up, but very little reason for someone to have to go through that challenge in this market today. And that's where if it gets to that point, that. Make a phone call, right? Call you and
don't wait.
Yeah, don't wait. Yeah, don't wait, and don't necessarily take a cash offer, right? Or not a cash offer, but we'll buy your house in cash.
Yeah, those there's always some strings attached to that, but that's definitely for another video.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're just outside the Athens area. Your office is located where?
We're in Bethlehem.
Okay, so how long have you guys been here?
So we've been in this office going on 3 years now.
Okay.
Now, I mean, I've been a member, been a part of Athens in some way, shape, or form for since 2008, since I graduated. So the first position in Wells was in Athens, and worked in Watkinsville for many years, and then we just happened to pick Bethlehem because it was the area where all of the people that worked for us, it's kind of a central location, and it's one that's a little underserved. There's still a growing area.
Well, that's good. Yeah, so you still got your deep roots in Athens, but you still have the ability to service kind of other areas. And speaking of the service side, where exactly do you service, like, for all of your clients? Is it just in this area? Is it statewide?
Oh, it's nationwide.
Nationwide.
Yeah,
okay.
That's one of the great things about prime lending is that we are affiliated with a bank, so everything runs through the federal side versus the state. So there's very little that I can't do across the country. We've written loans in Colorado. We do a lot of stuff in Florida. Trying to think of the furthest out. I think Colorado was probably the furthest that we've gone. But yeah.
Okay, well, that's kind of cool. So you guys got a long reach. So anybody that is watching this, if you do see this and you aren't already working with a lender, you can either reach out to me directly. Evan's information is 100% going to be below, around, above, somewhere near this video, so you guys can reach out directly. So what do you feel sets your business or your branch or your company, maybe even just your team on like a macro level, apart from everybody else that's doing it?
Yeah, I think it goes down to the team level or the branch level. The big thing that sets us apart is that everyone who is working with, or any client who's working with us, all of the folks that are going to be working on their loan are all in-house prime lending people. When I say in-house, not necessarily in the office, although we have in-house operations, which is great. It gives us a lot of control. So if someone calls us, if you give me a call on a Friday afternoon and say, hey, I got to put an offer in, we got to do a 12-day close or something crazy that, in order to make it happen, we can work with that. Okay. I don't have to make a phone call to somebody and say, hey, can we do this? Like, we have the ability to do that. Personally, myself, I feel like, what sets us apart is our ability to provide the greatest level of service. I know that sounds kind of cheesy, like, oh, we've got great service. We actually we act it out. I mean, when a customer calls us, if you call me to get a mortgage, we do an application for you. We're taking your information through underwriting on the front end. We're going to go ahead and get you fully approved on the loan. We want to make sure that, going into everything, you know exactly what to expect, you know exactly what you can do. And then once you do find a house, go under contract, you'll have me, my partner Dirk, my processor Chris, and Amanda. Everyone's going to be involved communicating with you throughout the process. We send out status updates once a week like clockwork. We've got milestone events that go out when stuff happens. So we're very involved with the customer. And I think that shows. I mean, if you check out and see the reviews that we've had over the years, it's a big deal.
Yeah, folks are substantial.
Folks are buying a house. It's one of the, if not the biggest thing they're doing in their life. And so we don't take that lightly.
Yeah.
And that's really outside of, take products, take programs, take, all of that out. That's all great. And those are tools, but you got to have a good foundation.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I've seen your guys' reviews, and I've worked with you in the past, and know that everything that you're saying is 100% accurate, and you guys do bring the service to the table. And there's no doubt about that. So now we're going to dive into kind of the opinion side of this. With everything that's going on, clearly everybody's saying, oh, we're in the highest rates ever, and that's not accurate. I've thrown some information out probably in the last week or two about actually in the last 50 years, if you look, 36 of those years were above 7% as far as mortgage rates are concerned. So with us getting back to that, I've always said that between 5 and 7%, it's a pretty healthy market for the most part. I mean, I've heard stories from my parents back in the 80s and 90s where people were camping outside of a bank just to get an 11% loan on a house. So with all that being said, where do you think with where we are now, where we're going, and what the real estate market is going to look like, say, in the next 6 months, year, or anything like that? Anything you got to add?
If I knew what was going to happen, you and I probably wouldn't be doing this video right now. I'd be sitting on a boat somewhere. But the best, I won't say guess, but the honest truth is it's a challenge right now. There's a lot of things going on, and there's a lot of media behind it that's presenting a picture of doom and gloom. I don't know if it's because of the algorithms, but every time I go on a Google news feed, I'm looking at, are we in another housing crisis? Is this 07? Housing prices are starting to do this. And
clickbait.
It's all, a lot of that is clickbait. We talked about it a little earlier, going through the numbers as far as inventory and as far as the amount of buyers that are out there. If you take the past 2 years of the lowest interest rates in the history of interest rates out of it, I don't think it's as drastic of a situation. I don't think, it's the contrast that's really tough right now. So you've got folks that are, they may have been told that, hey, my rate's going to be 3% in December, and now it's 5.5%, and that's tough, right? But when you look at the bigger picture and you look at the increase in wages over time and compare that with where interest rates are now against even the home prices that we're seeing today, affordability has not changed very much. You still have, a solid affordability across the board. And, what's the alternative, right? If you have someone who wants to buy a house, say it's a first-time home buyer, what options do they have? They can go rent, and they can pay
a lot more.
Right. They can pay the highest rent prices that have been seen, or they can buy a house, likely have still a lower mortgage payment, and be, in something they own, and paying down, a balance that's going to, decrease the mortgage. So I still think today is a great time to buy. And for folks that, you look at last year, for example, this time last year, we were in the same boat from the standpoint of, prices. We just come off a 20% increase in 2020. And folks are like, okay, well, I'm just going to hold tight and wait for it to pull back, and those same folks today are paying at least 20% more on a house, and now they're faced with higher interest rates. I think both of those things are going to continue. I feel like interest rates will continue to go up higher from here. I hope that doesn't happen. And if it does, then it is what it is. But all that's to say, I look at this market and, the time that we're in as an opportunity. And that's just based on what I know and the numbers that I know.
Yeah. I've always said that if you plan on buying a house and selling it within the next 12 to 24 months, it's probably not smart to buy a house right now.
Sure.
However, if you plan on seeing yourself in that house for at least the next, say, 3 to 7 years. 7 years is pretty much the average turnaround time with us as real estate agents that we usually expect clients to reach back out to us and, they're ready to move. Kids have graduated, life-changing events, marriage, divorce, as unfortunate as it is, it does happen. But if you're on that normal, 3 to 7 year cycle, then in my opinion, it doesn't really matter what rates are right now, because if they're worse in the future, then you've locked in a rate that's better now. And if they're better in the future, then you can refinance. And either way, then you're out of having to worry about paying rent to where you have zero to show for it at the end of your lease, whether it's for 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. Now, the issue that a lot of people wind up having is just they don't have that down payment money.
Okay.
Or whenever they do wind up coming up with that down payment money, like I know I've worked with clients that we've gotten beat out on multiple offers. Now, we had spoke offline. What is it? You guys have a new program out for a cash guarantee offer or something? Can you speak on that a little bit?
Sure, for sure. And then, before we get too far into that, that's the name of the game right now, and in our world, in your world too.
Yeah.
We're partnering together, agent and lender, to find the ways that we can best, put that offer in a spot where it's going to get accepted.
Yeah.
And there's ways to do that. There's different ways you can do that. You can waive contingencies. You can call listing agents and talk up the customer, which we're doing all of those, and you can run underwrites on the front end, which is what we do as well. And then the I guess the biggest would be that cash offer. So the way that that's presented for us is we partner with a third party company, and they will guarantee that that buyer will be able to close on that house in cash should the need arise. We don't go into that expecting or hoping that, we don't want that to happen. That's the fallback, right? We do our due diligence on the front end. We pre-underwrite. We know very well going into it that this is likely to close just like we would anything else, but it gives that safety net, right?
Yeah.
And to me, that's actually better than a true cash offer, because, and you can speak into this more than I can, but I've heard from many listing agents that there's a lot of investors putting in cash offers. They're not necessarily saying they're investors. They're trying to kind of hide that a little bit, but they may be putting 5 offers in at one time with the intentions to pull the plug on 4 of those 5.
Correct.
So, taking a buyer who is living in a home as a primary, who has a family, but also has the ability to close in cash, to me is better than, true cash.
And I don't disagree with that. The saying's been around for years for a reason: cash is king. And I know with a lot of the clients that I work with on a regular basis, or really any agent out there, whenever you submit an offer, whenever an offer is submitted on a property, there's a little checkbox if it's a cash offer, to where you have the ability to close this transaction or this deal with a mortgage on the back end, or you're just going to move forward with it being a cash offer the whole time.
Right.
So you have actually some options, and there are people out there that, I've closed transactions where the buyer had plenty of cash to close on it, but they didn't want to utilize that, because the way that I've always looked at it, and anybody that's smart as far as investing goes, or that's classified as wealthy, if you can borrow money for cheap, then borrow.
Right.
There's something called good debt.
Yep.
And so with real estate, that's a great. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole of real estate investing, but good debt is a good thing. And sometimes utilizing all of your cash isn't necessarily the best idea.
100% agreed. 100% agreed.
So that's pretty much everything that I wanted to cover. One of the last things that I always like to bring up is anybody that winds up seeing this video and say, hey, I'm in the market, I want to buy a house, I'm looking to try to get a mortgage, hey, I'm going to reach out to Evan. By the way, Evan's contact information is once again going to be below this. If they do reach out to you and say, hey, I saw your video with Jake, do you have anything special that you guys can offer them?
Sure, absolutely. And, so what we can do is if I hope that if folks that are watching this video, they're going to be working with you.
Yeah.
And that's, the reason behind why we would do what we do. We really, we want to work with agents that we like and that do a great job. That's really the biggest thing, right? Is, because when you partner with an agent who knows what they're doing, on the buyer's side, and the lender who knows what they're doing, they're working in tandem. That's you almost have to have that. Mm-hmm. You have to have solid communication between your agent, your loan officer, and your client. The client, they have to know that we're pulling out all the stops, right? You don't want to have a situation where you show 15 houses, not show 15, but 15 offers and the 16th gets accepted.
Yeah.
Right? You get a lot of, it's very emotional, So with that being said, this long, sorry about that for being long, but we'll offer a $1,000 lender credit to be applied towards closing costs for the purchase of a home using any financing that we have available.
That's awesome, man. I appreciate that.
Absolutely, man.
So you guys heard it there. Once again, this is Mr. Evan Nissley with Prime Lending. So if you guys have any questions at all, make sure to reach out to me, reach out to him. If you got some value out of this, make sure to hit like, subscribe. If you have any questions, drop those comments down below, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Evan.
Absolutely, man. Enjoyed it.